You can look at the time. Okay. ID. Okay. My title is Do You Have a Dream? Because I'm going to explain to you guys what the DREAM Act is. It goes along with DACA, and I'm going to explain what that is too. This is a persuasive speech for my Black Hawk Community College class, so thank you all for participating. What is the DREAM Act and DACA? The DREAM Act is defined by the Anti-Defamation League and is development, relief, and education for alien minors. It is a bill in Congress that would have granted legal status to certain undocumented immigrants who were brought to the United States as children and then proceeded to go to school here. DACA was what was before the DREAM Act. It is the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrival Programs, and it was created on June 15, 2012 by Barack Obama and other DACA policymakers. What DACA was, the recipients would receive a 2-year permit, and after those 2 years they would apply, and it would just continue every 2 years for those kids going to school here. When it comes to the question of whether or not to pass the DREAM Act, I personally stand for it. Although there are concerns, I would argue that it should not only be reinstated, but also amended to include the children and the immediate families of the recipients, because they deserve the opportunity to be Americans too. Most people have a misconception about the term immigrants. First and foremost, they are people just like you and I, and the majority are making a positive influence in and for America. Second, they were innocent children brought to America by their parents, so they had little to no choice to come here and be labeled as an immigrant. Third, families should not be put in jeopardy because of their parents' mistakes. And most of these recipients are grown now. They're in their 20s and 30s, and most have college degrees and stuff. And they also have like legal children and families that are here. President Obama stated, "These are young people who study in our schools, they play in our neighborhoods, they're friends with our kids, they pledge allegiance to our flag. They are Americans in their hearts and in their minds and in every single way but one, on paper." This is just some of the statistics of undocumented immigrants. 11.5 million there are 11.5 million undocumented immigrants. 85% have at least one relative who is a U.S. citizen. 62% have U.S. citizen children, and 13 have U.S. citizen spouses. 16.6 million in the U.S. with at least live with at least one undocumented immigrant, and 2/3 of all undocumented immigrants have been here for over a decade. And then I'm just going to go over some of the opposition to the DREAM Act. I labeled them the Dream Crushers. This is a picture of Donald Trump pointing at the immigrants, telling them to get out of America. I just kind of made a joke. That's not really what he's doing here, but I used it for that. I'm just going to say why there shouldn't be opposition. Studies have shown that the rumor of immigrants taking over American jobs are false. The false idea spreads fear and lies about immigrants coming to America. America should not be forcing illegal immigrants out of the United States based on the fact that they're taking over jobs that natives could potentially have. Over 465 civilian occupations, only 4 are the majority of immigrants, 4 out of 465. Studies have shown that having a family as part of your life as a child is essential to healthy development, and it's just the right and just thing to do. The truth about immigrants' occupied jobs. Many are often thought to be overwhelming by immigrant workers, but the fact that the majority are native born. 55% of maids and housekeepers are native born, 58% of taxi drivers and chauffeurs, 63% of butchers and meat processors, grounds maintenance workers, 65% are native born, construction laborers, 65 of those are native born, bellhops and concierges are 71% native born, and janitors are also 75% native born, and I know that's typically a job that most people think immigrants hold. One of my sources was Jennifer McFadden. She says it well. For some, the debate is as simple as whether or not to make children suffer because of the actions of their parents. But for the dreamers, the undocumented students whose futures depend on the outcome of legislation means much, much more. Why we should pass the DREAM Act? By allowing these immigrants to stay and granting their families legal citizenship, America prioritizes families and invests in the future of our great nation. It's also not fair for our nation's authorities and policymakers to hold these people's lives in their hands. And these students are more likely to develop psychosocial and educational difficulties if their families are separated and get sent back to wherever they came from. And ending out, this is just my works cited, and I just want to say once again that I stand for the DREAM Act because it's just the rightful thing to do. As Americans, we should welcome anyone who wants to make a positive difference in our nation to be here, and most of the DACA and Dreamers are here based off of their educational status, not them just being here illegally. Thank you.